Hey, what's going on, everybody? James here, your ABX audiophile. You're going to want to stick around for this because we are going to talk about probably one of my favorite tube amplifiers. Not that I've had a lot of them, and they're all kind of good to me, really. But this one's a little bit different, and it's super cool, very versatile for a tube amplifier. A nice modern take on some KT88, KT120 tube amplification. I am talking about the Thomas & Stereo Galleon TS120. It's been reviewed, it's been revered, it's been talked about, but never by us. Today we're going to talk about it, we're going to check it out. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, perspective, and our experience with our time with Thomas's equipment. If you did not catch my review on the Voyager transmission line speakers, make sure you go check that out. We've got the A75, the TS-A75 solid state amplifier in for review. We're getting ready to knock that one out. I actually bought that guy. So we've got all of Thomas's stuff in, and we are super excited to be spending time with his products and just being able to kind of bring you guys some really cool feedback. So check it out. Here we go. Let's take a look at it like we always do. Then we will come back and talk about it, and then we'll wrap it up and get you guys out of here. All right, so that was a look at the TS120, just kind of an overview. If you guys noticed, I kind of listed out some of the specs there. It seems very basic kind of in the beginning, but just throwing up a couple things. $4,495 on his website, includes shipping and customs, only in black, so you can't get this thing in the silver. If you looked back in the day, there was a kind of a 120 version that was silver. This is not that. This is the SE version. It's the only one listed on his website, and it is only available in the US right now. It says that it's sold out internationally. Basically, you get a really cool remote. I will cover that in just a minute. Power cable quick start guide. Basically, the SE version comes with kind of an upgraded capacitor from the older version, and that's said to the SE version be a little bit more refined, a little bit more neutral, and a little bit more kind of restrained and punchy and dynamic. So that's kind of some of the differences between the old one and kind of what the new one, the SE that you get now. I don't know if there's an intention of re-releasing just the standard 120, but that's kind of what that looks like there. Let's see, what else? Okay, so let's throw this one up here. Basically, what he's saying is, you know, we kind of listen to what he said on his website, looking at what his claims are, kind of what he talks about his amplifier is and does. One of the things that I noticed kind of going through Thomas & Stereo's gear, working through the A75, working through the Voyager speakers, is he makes all these kind of claims on his website, and they really are, like, really accurate. So if you look at this one here, we'll put it right there. Both tube and solid state amp. For example, this has a smoothness and airy holographic soundstage of a tube amp, but at the same time, the speed, control, dynamics, and bass of a solid state amplifier. And I think that's interesting that he talks about that because if you look at the structure of this thing, it is Class A, Class AB switchable. And it also has two sound profiles that you can switch from, an A and I think a B, and then there's a T that you can switch. I'll put the visual up here, but if you switch it from A to B, it kind of changes the sound profiles a little bit. And if you switch it from Class A to Class B gives you much more of this like punch, dynamic, tightness, kind of controlled, a little bit more defined, maybe a little bit more resolution. And it leads you kind of to what he's talking about there, about where, you know, it does have some speed and control and dynamics. But then if you switch to Class A mode, you can kind of get that musicality, that texture, that richness, kind of not that so forward performance-based thing. So when he talks about that, he really is kind of speaking the truth, which was very interesting for us, the versatility of this thing. I've heard people talk about this amplifier kind of as the Swiss Army knife of tube amps, and I would say that I would agree with that pretty wholeheartedly. Let's go to the next one. What's the next thing he talks about? Oh yeah, Class A, Class B. We talked about that, kind of switching between the modes. So basically you just press a couple series of buttons and it will kind of auto bias and move itself from Class A to Class AB and then Class AB back to Class A depending on what your profile is, what you're kind of wanting to do. And you can kind of switch that on the fly. It just takes a couple seconds to do. And he talks about that this is different than most amplifiers on the market because most of your amplifiers, like the ones that we've had compared it to before, we had the Wilsonton R8, we had the Prima Luna Dialogue Premium, we had the Prima Luna Evo 300 Hybrid. We've messed with some of the Dolce Audio tube amplifiers. We've had the bottlehead crack stuff that Kelly's had. We've messed with a few different tube amplifiers, over the past year or so. And usually you have that ultra linear triode mode button that you can kind of switch, and he's saying that this is a little bit different because most amplifiers on the market only choose between triode and ultra linear. In Class A, you will enjoy that linear mid-range that is unique to Class A, kind of like we talked about, and in Class B, you will get more power resulting in more authoritative bass. So those are the claims, and we found that to be true. I think that was really kind of in a sense like we talked about. I mean, it's just the differences between Class A and Class B. So it was really nice to be able to experience those two things within a tube amplifier. Usually you kind of don't get that vibe, and it was really interesting. Let's go to the next one. What's he talking about here? Tight control and dynamic bass. Yeah, I would agree with that. You don't get kind of some of the things that I'm noticing, and it's not just specific to Thomas's tube amp. A lot of these modern amplifiers, like my Prima Luna Dialogue Premium, some of the other amplifiers we have tube-wise, they do a real punchy and tight bass. And I think that's just something, and I'm not an amp builder, I don't know what it is, but a lot of these new modern tube amplifiers really kind of blend that, solid state punch, dynamics, and control that we see in that space with kind of some of that old school, like tubey kind of vibe soundstage thing that we get from some of these, old school tube amplifiers that are kind of built around that structure. So it's kind of a good blending, and he's totally right here. He talks about the massive transformers that he uses, the weight of this thing. It is beefy. I mean, I've had some beefy amplifiers. We had the R8, the Wilsonton R8 was a beefy amplifier. The Prima Luna Dialogue Premium is a beefy amplifier. When you pick this thing up out of the box, this TS120, she's a big girl. So you just be kind of ready for that. But he talks about kind of some of the things that are a reason for kind of why he says that's kind of taking place. So looking up here again, wide holographic 3D soundstage. I think that absolutely is super true. Not as holographic and 3D of a soundstage as we've heard through, say, some of our like single-ended type, tube amplifiers. Like when we listen to our La Dolce Audio, it's just a little 4-watt single-ended pentode amplifier, I believe. And that soundstage is just immense. But it's a little teeny, tube amplifier. So you're kind of limited in what you can do. So the nice thing about Thomas's amplifier especially is it does kind of bring some of that to the stage. It brings a very nice holographic soundstage, just like I would expect from any good tube amplifier that we've had kind of in this space. But it has a nice air and layering to it. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about the TS120 is the kind of the distance in between things and kind of that layering, how there's that separation between the things in the soundstage and kind of moving around and seeing that expansiveness and experiencing that. I think the TS120 does a really good job there, and I would agree with Thomas's take on that. High quality build, Jupiter stolen capacitors, custom Japanese volume controls. This guy kind of went all out. Basically, if you look on his website, this is a collaboration between him and Doug. I don't know how to say it, but basically Thomas reached out and said, hey, what if you had no cost, no restraints on building a tube amplifier? And they kind of started this dialogue, and then it evolved into this thing about Thomas kind of just starting his own thing and starting his own tube amplifier, and they got together, built it. Here you have it, definitely voiced by Thomas. This is his amplifier. He is kind of the mastermind behind it, in partnership with that company. So high quality parts. I would agree. This thing feels quality. It looks quality. It sounds quality. All of your knobs, tone controls, everything, the sockets for the tubes, binding post, RCA jacks, everything on the back. This thing is good quality. Tone controls. Let's throw this one up here. And I want to put a picture of the actual tone controls here too. because this is pretty cool how he's got it switchable. So you go to mode A, you get kind of a more relaxed, kind of chill sound. You go to T, now it engages the bass and treble, and you can kind of tune this thing how you like it. You go to B, you get a little bit more forward presentation, kind of dynamic stuff. And he talks about kind of what those controls do. But if you pair that with the Class A, Class AB mode, as well as the tone controls, oh, phone call. And the really interesting thing there is if you pair the tone controls in that T mode with the, or any of them actually, A, T, or B, you know, whatever it is on that dial there. So you've got 3 choices there, and then you can kind of partner that with the Class A, Class AB modes. I mean, you've got some pretty great versatility in this thing, and the options for voicing that you can do with this tube amplifier is pretty spectacular, and we haven't even got into tube rolling yet, for crying out loud. You can buy an upgraded pair of KT88 tubes on his website. I think they're $192 a pair. I've seen some reviews on them. We didn't get those in. We just had the stock PS Fanes, the KT88s, which were absolutely fantastic. We rolled some other tubes that we had in there, and then paired with that, rolling tubes, going from Class A to Class AB, going over to the tone control and picking the different profile settings and adjusting with the bass and treble. You can literally make this tube amplifier sound any way you want to, basically. And you always kind of have that nice tube thing that we get. It's really hard to go from tubes back to solid state because you just lose some of that sparkle and that air and that sound stage and just that, I don't know, man. There's just something. There's a soul to music when you kind of live in this space of tube amplification, and to be able to pair that with the Class A, the Class AB, all the different versatility in the tubes. It's a pretty spectacular machine for, you know, $4,500. All right, just a quick view of the back of this thing. You've got your series of inputs 1 through 4. You've got the tape out section is just your standard out. You've got a subwoofer out. This is really cool because you can actually switch your subwoofer from stereo to mono. So depending on whether you're running a single sub center, stereo subs, if you want it to be actual stereo subwoofers, you've got some controls there. Notice you've got your 4 ohm and your 8 ohm speaker taps there. And he's got a little bit of a ground deal here. He's got a normal and a noise reduction mode on the ground. We didn't really hear much noise kind of in our system with our power and our components that we were running with. So we just kept it on normal the whole time. And I didn't have any issues there, but there is an option there. Your standard power switch, your toggle switch, and your plug. So that's kind of the back of that thing. There we go. All right, so just kind of in closing on the Galleon TS120 SE tube integrated amplifier. We had this thing with about every speaker that we've got. We paired it with the Fortes, the Klipsch Forte IIs. We paired it with the Audio Evoke 50s. We put Thomas's Voyager transmission line speakers on there. Fantastic. We did our ABX La Dolce Audio Baffles. What else did we have on there? Oh, the KEF R500s. We put the Mark Audio Cesti Bs on there. I think really my takeaway is, what does everybody's going to ask, well, what does this amplifier sound like? Well, it sounds like whatever you want it to sound like, and it performs good in all of those spaces. So if you like a Class A with a little bit more forward, bright edginess to it, you can just put it in Class A mode and then switch it over to Sound Signature B, right? If you want that kind of punch and performance of the Class AB, but you want a little bit of laid backness to it, you can put it in Class AB and then just switch the tone, control over there and just kind of mess with this thing. So this amp doesn't sound like really anything other than just quality sound. It does a really good job. The bass is punchy. The vocals are rich and textured. The high end is smooth but detailed, and it's got a nice resolution to it. But you can adjust all of those things in real time on the fly, however you like. So it pairs with almost any speaker, I would say. Is it worth the $4,500? So if you ask me that question, my reference tube amplifier right now is a Prima Luna Dialogue Premium. And I've got some nice tubes in it, and that is a fantastic tube amplifier. And it's got the Prima Luna Dialogue sound, which I like Prima Luna's house sound. Is it as versatile as this? Not even close. It's not even as close as versatile, So if you're really looking for something that is going to be kind of a lifetime tube amplifier that, regardless of what DACs you bring into the system, regardless of what streamers you bring into the system, regardless of your turntable or your phono preamps or your speakers, you're going to kind of be able to tailor your sound. So this is kind of something that you may look at and consider, okay, I can just buy this integrated amplifier. I can get a multitude of sounds out of it. And maybe I'm going to be happy for a long time, because if I want to change, I can just do it right there. I don't have to mess with anything. The only thing that I don't know, this thing's only been out a few years, so we don't know about longevity. We don't know, how long these things are going to last. I mean, that's kind of goes with anything. I don't know about this company specifically that Thomas partnered with, and kind of what their track history is, and what their products prior looked like. All I do know is that I think Thomas has a good idea of what quality is, and when he got with Doug and actually got into designing this amplifier, I think that they chose quality components and parts to put in there. I think that was one of Thomas's missions. So I guess we'll see how things evolve as we go down the road. Some of the things that we talk about in our Discord, when I shared this thing with our Discord, the community was like, well, what's the customer service going to look like? What's the longevity going to look like with this thing? As they do with any kind of new product or new amplifier or new speaker that comes out. And so that's yet to be seen, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to thank Thomas for engaging with our community and our charity, sending us basically everything he has to review, and really kind of trusting us to, represent his equipment in a truthful and enlightful way. And that's kind of where we're at. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Keep an eye out for the Seb Audio speaker review. We've got the Galleon TS-A75 amp review coming. Check out our Voyager speaker review we did, and we've got some really cool baffle stuff coming up. So keep an eye out, guys. Appreciate you. I'm James, your ABX audiophile. We are the world's only 100% non-profit charity reviewers. 100% of our proceeds go directly to support youth musical programs that are focused on mentorship through musical creation. Over $8,000 raised and donated in a little under a year and a half. So keep it up. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.